Let's talk about King Charles' coronation, right? Or just Charles' coronation. I am British, but I was trying my best to avoid looking, hearing, or seeing anything to do with this. And the other day I opened up YouTube to look something up, and of course, plastered on the front page was the coronation, and I literally happened to tune in. Unfortunately, I clicked it, and I happened to tune in literally as he was, they were presenting him with the various swords and stolen diamonds from all over the world, and scepters and and then he puts the crown on his head, right? The Archbishop of Canterbury. So let's talk about this. This is a very divisive topic. I mean, I think that first of all, Charles is I mean, compared to Queen Elizabeth, who just, she died a few months ago, he doesn't even have half the popularity that she does, okay? So if you're going to make the argument to keep the monarchy, based on what, right? Just put this into perspective. This coronation cost 250 million pounds. That's maybe like $310 million. And it's not him paying for it, which would be, pennies for this guy and his family. It's the British taxpayer. So the British people are paying for this guy to be fitted with assorted garments and diamonds and scepters and swords and crowns. For what? What does this mean to have a king? A king of what? And it's very perverse, by the way. It's very perverse because, at one moment they give him the orb. It's called the orb. It literally is. And he holds this up in the right hand. And why does he hold this in the right hand? This golden ball? Because it's supposed to symbolize, it's a Christian symbol, right? That Jesus or the Son sits at the right hand of the Father. So he holds up this orb, which is supposed to represent the universe, right? It's more accurately, it's the four corners of the world, basically, everything. And I find it deeply perverse because basically these people are using the Church of England, right, which was established by the British monarchy, to give themselves all of this power and money, and they use religion to do it as well, which makes it even more disgusting, right? Now let me just play you this clip because it's just a coronation, right? This is I didn't edit anything. Just look at this.
Things that are gone to decay, maintain the things that are restored, punish and reform what is amiss, and confirm what is...
Jesus, I mean, it looks like you're seeing something out of the Middle Ages, right? I mean, it is. They've changed the various, crown jewels. They've been adjusted over the years. One king wanted this change, and so on. But by and large, they've been doing this in Westminster Abbey, which is a church in London. It's right next to the House of Parliament. They've been doing this for 1,000 years, since 1066, since William the Conqueror. So this is the Middle Ages. You are looking at a ritual that is from the Middle Ages, and the chair behind him is it really looks like I shouldn't say it looks like it is quite literally an artifact of history, right? I mean the handwriting on it, the words that have been etched out, it's hilarious, honestly. Let me just play a few more seconds of that.
Is in good order, that doing these things you may be glorious in all virtue, and so faithfully serve our Lord Jesus Christ in this life, that you may reign forever with him in the life which is to come. Amen.
The king will stand.
Here, and they're giving him all this stuff. And then he gets fitted with his lovely crown and everything. Yeah, look at that. Look. I mean, just it's disgusting. When I say disgusting, I mean the excess of it. If this guy had bought this stuff himself and he wants to do this ritual by himself, by all means, you can rent out Westminster Abbey, perhaps, I don't know, speak to the church, maybe arrange for a certain date, and you can pay for them to give you the church for a few hours, and you can sit down and do this with your own stuff, like someone who's off in La La Land. Do it yourself, but why do you have to make the British public pay for this? this is happening during what the media call a cost of living crisis, right? So that we screwed up by sanctioning Russia crisis because we're idiots and we've sped up, our demise. No, it's a cost of living crisis. Anyway, my point is that most people are poor. They can't afford to pay for food, or they can't pay their bills. They're having problems with these. These are very serious issues. You have junior doctors that are striking. You have nurses that are striking, teachers that are striking. This is all happening right now because they're not being paid enough, because they're being screwed over. And these are true public servants. I know the royal family, they try and get away with their existence by doing charity events, which is all there is to do, really, when you're so stinking rich, I suppose. But it doesn't really justify the existence of a monarchy in the 21st century. It just really doesn't. And like I said, if he wants to go off and do this, of his own accord, by himself, with his own money, he's free to do that. The thing is, though, when we say his own money, half the stuff in this coronation is stolen, man. Let me just show you the South African government was complaining about this. Well, not the president, but definitely people in this. So South African politicians were complaining about this. Look, there's a CNN article that I pulled up for you. This is from 3 days ago, right? South Africans call for the UK to return diamond set and crown jewels. So there's a very specific one. It's called the Star of Africa. I mean, it's a the original cut. So the original diamond before it was cut was the size of a human heart. That's how big it is, and it's still gigantic. It's on the scepter. You see that? That's how enormous this thing is. Okay, and that comes from South Africa, right? It's called the Great Star of Africa, and here's another photograph of it. Right. So this is a sovereign scepter with cross. That's what this scepter is known as, and that diamond is featured on it, and it was modified in the early 20th century by King Edward, right? So he got it as a present for his birthday. Now the way that the way that they try to justify this, the monarchy, right, is that they say, well, it was given to him as a birthday present. It was bought and given to him as a birthday present. Yeah, but the thing is, who bought it and from whom was this diamond bought, right? They don't tell you that bit. That South Africa, South Africa was, basically run by the British at this time. Okay, so there's no independent element in this whatsoever. And the mining syndicates, all of this, the entire mining industry, the government itself in South Africa was entirely run by the British government. So when you say that it was bought from a private mine, no, it wasn't. You call it private, but it's all being run by the British government. So it's one example. We can go through, we'll be here all night if we go through every diamond and everything that's in these crowns. And this is the least of the problems. There's also evidence that the royal family were engaged in slavery, right? When I say engaged in slavery, you have a document that The Guardian published, I think a month ago, showing how the royal family, they bought shares. I think it was 1,000 shares in the RAC, and the RAC is the Royal African Company, which was a slave trading company. So I think they in total 180,000 people were enslaved and sent from Africa. They were captured. They were put into chains and shipped off to Africa. To America, which is part of the triangle trade, right? So you had, I think, 30,000 people who died on the journey alone. I mean, these figures are obscene. You got like 20 plus, over 20,000 children who were amongst these slaves. This is the royal family who was sponsoring this and profiting off of this. So, when we say his money, is it really his money? I mean, and slavery is illegal, man. And when you're making money off of that, and on top of that, the public have to fund your lifestyle, pay for you to live in this disgusting, in Christianity, because they make this out to be a Christian thing, right? Because it's the Archbishop of Canterbury who's conducting the ceremony and so on for the coronation. In Christianity, you have cardinal sins, right? And one of them is gluttony, right? So it's not greed, it's beyond that. It's excess. You look at this and you tell me that this isn't excess. I mean, come on, man.
return to the Lord President.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
With a payment of 100 shillings, according to ancient custom.
Yeah, look, see all that? Now, don't get me wrong. This is beautiful. It's an awesome, powerful piece of theater. It absolutely is. But like I said, do it on your own dime. Don't make people pay for that. Return the stolen diamonds, and then you can have your piece of theater. Okay? It's a very simple concept. Now, on top of that, you know, I know this is a very difficult concept for people to grasp in England, but you know, you can't have a monarchy and also call yourself a democracy. It just really doesn't work. It really doesn't work. And I know people will say, well, hold on, England is a parliamentary monarchy. What does that even mean? A parliamentary monarchy? Why is the word monarchy involved in this entire business? You know, people, the way this works, if there's a new incoming government, so for example, you know, with Rishi Sunak, who's now the prime minister, you know, he has to go to the Queen, because it was Queen Elizabeth alive at the time, and basically inform the reigning monarch of the and receive their blessing in order to form a new government. Now, people will say, well, that's just a ritual. It's just a formality. It's not actually, you know, she can't actually say no. And then when it comes to laws, every single law in the United Kingdom that is passed has to receive something called royal assent. Royal assent means that the reigning monarch, the king or the queen or whoever, they don't actually sign the law, but they sign a paper saying that they give their consent or you know, that they approve the law. And once again, you'll have people say, well, oh, it's just a formality, and it's, you know, the monarch doesn't really play any role in politics. That's not true. I know it's not used anymore, you know, I know it's not enforced anymore, because the last time I think it was Queen Mary in 1708. I think she stepped in because she was afraid there was going to be a Scottish militia, you know, to get rid of her or something. She stepped in and she blocked the law, right? It's kind of like just to simplify this for you know, for the Americans or people who have you know, different form of government. In the United States, when something passes in Congress, it lands on the president's desk, and the president can veto it, and then it can go back to Congress and so on. Basically, the queen or the king in this case have a veto, but it's an actual, like, they can actually use this. This is a real thing. So if this is a real thing, don't come and tell me that they're not involved in politics or they don't play a role in politics. They absolutely do. And even if it's just a formality, it's wrong. If you want to have that, then at least have the common decency to stop insulting people's intelligence. At least have the common decency to say, yes, this is a tyrannical monarchy, and the monarch is really the one who has who you know, gets to call the shots. They can actually step in and control what comes in and what does not come in, or what goes through and what doesn't. This is a fact. That they can do that, right? The king or the queen can do that in England. They can veto laws. So that makes them, by definition, by de facto, they are involved in the legal process. So and with the formation of government, it's the same thing, right? So the monarch absolutely does play a role in politics, and if you want to make it a formality, then remove their right to veto anything. That's the way you make it an actual formality, right? Is that you don't have them as a head of state. Because another thing you should keep in mind, you know, when we're talking about the King of England, it's actually, King Charles is now the King of Jamaica as well, and the King of Canada, and the King of Australia, right? So all these Commonwealth countries. I'm not kidding. It's kind of weird to grasp, right? But yeah, this is still a thing. The King of England is the head of state, not just in the UK, but also all of the Commonwealth countries, right? So Jamaica have said that within a year, so until 2024, they are going to have a referendum to withdraw themselves from the Commonwealth and become an actual true republic, right? With no head of state over in Buckingham Palace or you know, in London. So let me just show you some other clips. You know, you had people who were protesting in London the day of the you know, the coronation, and they ended up getting arrested. You had tons of people arrested. I mean, look at this. They confiscated these signs the police here are loading up these signs that say "Not my king," because people were coming and protesting saying "Not my king." They're against the monarchy. So police are taking this away. But again, England, the vibrant democracy, right? Be quiet and don't speak ill of the king. Here you have somebody else who was arrested on suspicion of carrying eggs. Wow. This carries the death penalty, I'll mind you.
This is fascism! I'm being arrested just for being here! What am I doing?
It's wild. Do you hear the people shouting shame on him? What century is this? Are you in Game of Thrones or something? What is this shame on him? Look at these morons, man. Just they completely fucking brainwashed sheep. Brainwashed sheep. And I just wish they would have the common decency to say, yes, I am a brainwashed sheep. I want a king. I want a monarchy. And I do not care about, I do not care about any concept, anything that is remotely related to democracy. Just say it. Just be honest. At least be honest if you're going to be, kissing the king's behind.
In a democracy, we shouldn't be arresting people for peaceful protest.
I'm not going to get into a conversation about that, okay? They're under arrest, end of. Okay? Thank you.
So, excuse me.
I'm not here to interview, okay? Thank you.
Why are these people being arrested for protesting in a democracy?
Because it's not a democracy. Good morning. Here you got people in a stadium. I don't. What match was this? Where was this? I can't see anything. It's so pixelated. You got to forgive me, guys. It's saying you can stick your coronation up.
Not my king! Not my king! Not my king! Not my king!
I propose we change the national anthem to that, or it's much better. By the way, I just want to remind you that number one, the national anthem has to be changed because it's now "God Save the Queen." The King instead of the Queen. The Sex Pistols should capitalize on this opportunity to release a sequel. I really recommend and I strongly implore them to follow my advice. You have 1 million departments in the police, in the army, in the armed forces that have some form of the Queen's name. Either it could be like Elizabeth II. It will have E and then the 2 Roman, so 2 in Roman numerals. This has to be changed now because she's no longer the reigning monarch. So it's not they have to change it to Charles. You'll have things that need to be changed from Her Majesty to His Majesty. So, for example, the prisons in the United Kingdom are usually called HMP. So, Her Majesty's prison will now be changed to His Majesty's prison. I mean, just think of the bureaucratic nightmare, the logistical nightmare of having to reprint all of this shit, every sign, every goddamn pin, whatever it is, or armbands or patches. I mean, come on, man. How much money does this cost? Let them pay for it. Let them pay for it. They are so goddamn rich. They're so stinking rich. No one actually knows how much money the royal family have. And even if you accept these ridiculous estimates, which understate and hide and obfuscate how much money they really possess, they are obscenely, grotesquely rich. They could fund anything they like. God damn it, they could build their own country on space. That's how stinking rich they are. And the problem here is that the British royal family are really the only royal family that is actually still alive in the 21st century, with all of their money and all of their status intact. And you need to think about how that, you need to think about how serious that is. Because if they don't exist in a vacuum. They control, I don't care what anyone says. If you have royal assent involved in the legislative process, then that means that the royal family play a role in politics. Finito. It's not just a formality. It's not just a ritual. It is, they can actually, the king or the queen can actually step in and veto a law. They can do that. They have to announce the formation of governments. You know, every incoming and outgoing prime minister has to go to the king, right? Like kind of like kissing the ring and getting on their knees or some weird crap, right? And that is not okay. And then on top of that, on top of controlling politics, they are funded. Their entire lifestyle is funded by the taxpayer. How is this conceivable? How is this possible in the 21st century in a place calling itself a democracy? This is inconceivable. This is impossible. Okay, I don't care. Like, I understand that some people like that there is some sense of lineage, that there is a continuity here. You've had more or less 1,000 years. 1,000 years of British monarchy. Guess what? Most of the world are not happy about this because they were screwed by colonialism. So just so you keep that in mind. Yeah, when people hear about British royal family, they want to vomit in a lot of places. Because we colonized them and destroyed their countries. So, but inside England, there are a lot of people who think that this is something nice because it's kind of like tradition or it's a custom that's been passed down and continued for so long. Once again. That's very nice, but that doesn't mean that they should play a role in politics or be funded by the taxpayer. Period. End of story. End of story. And that's I'm already being very kind here. I'm being very generous because in the 17th century they dealt with kings in a very different manner, and I think Charles I can attest to that. It's kind of a shame because for a very, very short period of time, England was actually a republic for 11 years, right? So this is under Cromwell. Now, the thing is, Cromwell, when what he did in Ireland, he's a real bastard, what he did to the Irish. So, just the fact that it was a republic didn't really change anything in terms of the relationship between London and the Irish. So that oppression was still ongoing, and kept on. The other problem is that you had no stable government during these 11 years. There were no meaningful laws that were passed. And after this, of course, people will say, well, the good thing is that you had the emergence of what is the constitution, the parliamentary monarchy, and that basically after this, the role of the crown was limited somewhat in politics. Again, maybe, but it's not good enough. It's just not good enough. They have too much power. They have too much wealth. They have bestowed upon themselves this obscene concept that God chose them to rule over us. Says who? Says who? Why? Who says that Charles is a better man than I am, or than you, or that Queen Elizabeth is a better woman than you? Based on what? This is a ludicrous, it's a fantastical argument. It's not. It has no basis in reality. It's imaginary. It's completely lunatic. I would argue. And again, this piece of theater called the Coronation, it's very beautiful. Westminster Abbey is glorious. It's very, very nice. But King Charles can pay for it by by himself on his own dime. Let me show you a video from George Galloway, former MP, and what he has to say about this.
We've been very lucky in Britain. The Queen has rarely, if ever, embarrassed us in any way, but all of our children, all of them, have embarrassed us at one point or another. And who knows what embarrassments lie ahead in the closet for Prince Charles, who is the heir to the throne. I don't know if Prince Charles is guilty of a crime or one of his underlings will take the rap, but it is a pretty powerful piece of evidence in support of our demand that when, in the fullness of time, Her Majesty the Queen faces the inevitable demise that all of us will face, there should be a referendum in Britain on the future of the monarchy.
Yeah, I completely agree with George. There should be a referendum. There should be a referendum. I mean, Jesus Christ, this is, that's the bare minimum. That's the bare minimum. Let's start with that, Let's start with that. It's a referendum. If people are so convinced that having a monarchy is a good thing and everybody wants this, then we'll see. All right? What have you got to lose? Why are you so afraid? I think most people don't want a monarchy. They don't care about the monarchy. The monarchy has no value to them. On the contrary, the monarchy subtracts value from their lives by taking money and spending it on ridiculous estates and palaces and this and that. And rituals like this. This is outrageous. £250 million for this ceremony. Do you know how many people you could have fed with that money? Jesus Christ. They have no shame. They have goddamn no shame. And what about reparations? They come and flex all these diamonds and swords and scepters. And that's very nice as a piece of theater. But these came from mines from other countries. We don't have these in England. There's nowhere in Britain that you're going to get these stones. And these things were bought with blood money, that was made, that was either stolen, that was taken from the public, that was, that comes from profits made off of slavery, where the royal family profited off of slavery. It comes from, pseudo, mandates and countries like South Africa that were controlled by Britain, right? They say, it was the Star of Africa was a gift to King Edward. No, it wasn't. It was stolen. It was stolen by a British-run government in South Africa that owned and controlled all of these syndicate mines. It's that simple, And then also there are lots of stones that were taken from India, and this is just the beginning. There are tons of pieces that are in the British Museum, and having this monarchy has enabled all of this, right? So because everything is His Majesty's His Majesty's armed forces, His Majesty's prison, everything, it comes under the umbrella of the monarchy, and the monarchy is responsible for that. So if you want the monarchy at the head of the British state, then you have to accept that the head of state also is accountable for their actions. Yes? You can't say, "Oh, I want a king," but then you don't accept that the king and the king's family have committed these atrocities and have done wrong. Because they have done these things with their power. They've used their power to buy slaves, to profit off of slavery, to steal diamonds, to steal resources, to plunder other countries, right? And of course, they had viceroys and people who took care of this for them. But that doesn't change that they have blood on their hands and they need to do right by South Africa, by Australia, by all these colonies that Britain had. They need to do right by the First Nations people. By the First Nations peoples in those countries. That's a fact. It's the bare minimum. And something that I find very disgusting is that Charles, I'm not going to call him king. He's a dude called Charles. Period. And his son Harry. Do you know? I was struggling with their names the other day. I literally do not even care to know their names, and neither should you or anybody in Britain, especially in Britain. If somebody else wants to stand them, I'll tell you that's their problem. But, Charles and his son Harry, right? I think Harry was on some visit to Jamaica. He did a tour of the Caribbean last year, which I covered here on the channel. Every time they talk about slavery, they never apologize. They say they find it profoundly serious that and they will investigate this and they will look into this. They never actually say sorry, and they never talk about reparations, which are the two things that matter the most. It's the bare minimum. And they never mention them, and that is disgusting. And the people in Jamaica, the people around the world who are victims of British colonialism see that and point that out. Okay? So, one last fun fact that I'll leave you with is you might be thinking that his name is Charles Windsor, right? That the royal family's name is Windsor. That's actually not true. They are German, and they had to change their name. There was so much anti-German sentiment in Britain during World War I that the royal family changed their name to hide that they're German, right? It was Saxe, Coburg, Gotha, or some weird crap like that. I mean, it's basically how this works, right? You got a bunch of royal families in Europe marrying off each other's cousins, and then off to it's all a bunch of inbred crap. I don't even want to get into it. It's so nasty, and they're basically German, and they just changed their name. Now I don't care whether someone has a German name or a Martian name or whatever the hell they're from, but the fact that they are funded by the taxpayer, they have I would very easily say billions in wealth, absolutely billions in wealth. If you count the money, you count the estates, the fact that they live their lifestyle at the taxpayer's expense in Britain, that they call themselves better than the rest of us, and and that they had to change their family name to hide that they're not actually really British. I mean, this is just shady crap. This is shady crap. But I left it to last because it's the last of my concerns. I really don't give a crap where they're from, what they call themselves. They are the royal family, and have been, and they have this power and have this wealth, and they've done a lot of wrong, and they need to completely remove themselves from British politics. End of story. It's high time that there's a referendum in England, in Britain, for people to decide, because this is outrageous. And the police, look at the police arresting people for protesting. How do you get away with calling this a democracy? I mean, already the coronation itself is pretty damning evidence that it's not a democracy. How do you get away with this, man? Here, let me play you this video over here from The Cure.
2012, citizens not subjects. That's what's on my guitar.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's kind of about the dumbing down of my country, my culture, with how you're supposed to think it's really great that William marries Kate and that the Queen's been on the throne. I was part of a punk revolution that celebrated God Save the Queen and thought that the whole thing was going to come tumbling down anytime soon. In 1977, the Silver Jubilee, we did a show. That was one of our very first concerts. I fucking hate royalty. I hate the idea of any kind of hereditary privilege. It's wrong. It's not just anti-democracy. It's just inherently wrong. What upsets me is that some people who I've actually admired down the years get offered a reward by the royal family, by hereditary monarchy, and they take it. They become lord or sir, and you think honestly, if I ever accepted it, I'm never going to get one, but I would honestly cut off my own hands before I get it, because how dare they presume that they could give me an honour? I'm much better than them. They've never done anything.
Damn right.
Fucking idiots.
Damn right.
King. John Prescott.
Brilliant. Okay, guys. Let's leave it at that. We've said everything that we have to say.